What's good, everybody? It's the Real AG here, back at you again on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. And as my man Coach Defense dropped in our video on Monday, the Hit Squad is back each and every week, continuing doing our 2025 preview for every NFL team across the league. As you know, your boy, the Real AG here, bats lead off for our weekly content. This week, we are kicking things off in the AFC East, looking at those beastly Buffalo Bills up north in New York. And let me just say, first and foremost, I mean, since the Bills have had this Sean McDermott, Josh Allen pairing, they have always been, a fairly elite football team, have always been on the cusp of that Super Bowl glory. And I wouldn't be the in-house Chiefs fan here if I didn't quietly mention, which team somewhat ends those runs year in and year out. So, looking at 2024, Buffalo 13-4, first in the AFC East. Of course, lost in the AFC Championship game to my Kansas City Chiefs, 32-29. A tale as old as time at this point. But first and foremost, looking ahead for the Buffalo Bills in 2025, let's kind of review what they did in this offseason. Starting with the most notable free agent signings, and as well as some re-signings and just some moving on moves that they made throughout this process. But, relatively overall, I would say it was a pretty decently quiet free agency period for Buffalo. The focus was obviously on extending or re-signing some key players or key pieces to the core that they have, as well as getting a lot of, less risky, I should say, one-year deals on some established vets that maybe come in with some baggage or an asterisk. But looking at the big re-signings first and foremost, I mean, obviously everyone saw the fat contract our boy Josh Allen got, the record-setting 6-year, $330 million contract extension with $250 million. That's right, 250 fully guaranteed, which is the largest ever guaranteed amount to any NFL player. So yeah, he got the bag. Re-signed Shakir, key slot weapon type receiver in this Buffalo Bills offense to 4 years, $60.2 million. Extended linebacker Terrell Bernard, 4 years, $50 million. Extended, premier edge rusher Gregory Rousseau out of the U for 4 years, $80 million. Those are, the big key extensions. Obviously, you see at the bottom here, some of those moves meant they had to make some tougher decisions, decided to release Von Miller, moved on from that veteran, and then traded Kaiir Elam to the Dallas Cowboys, which is a formidable trade to know because he was their first-round pick, just a few years ago. So tough to see that, and I will kind of address the specifics of the trade a little later on. But, those were the big focal point re-signings or extensions. Looking at the big-ticket free agent items here, first and foremost, I think the biggest signing, obviously moving on from Von Miller, they had to supplement that edge rush presence a little bit. Saw them do that with the signing of Joey Bosa from coach and Young RG's little Chargers. Pretty relatively low risk deal, 1 year, $12.6 million. Like I said, addresses the pass rush need immediately. Bosa, for whatever baggage he may carry, is an established and accomplished vet when he's on the field. Again, like I said, has some baggage. That baggage is obviously injury concerns. Looking at just the past 3 years alone, he has missed 23 games over that span. So hope Buffalo can get a little something more out of him. He's already been reported to be hurt in OTAs. So we'll see how that saga plays out. But for 1 year, $12.6 million, low risk, high reward potential move there. Other big free agent signings are defensive tackle Larry Ojobi, probably butchering that one. You know who I'm talking about. But signed him to a 1 year, $8.3 million deal. Again, low risk, potentially high reward. You're getting another established vet with size and experience to the interior of their D line. Could potentially be a great pairing with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. And, Larry, L-Dog, can play both the 1 and 3 tech. So, again, great veteran presence to add to their defense, which is something they're going to need to step up at if they're going to get over that playoff hump and move into the Super Bowl. Just looking at some other potential key signings here. Obviously, you got Josh Palmer, another Charger boy, ironically, signed him to a 3-year, $36 million deal. Clearly, an emphasis to build out the wide receiver room a little bit more. Obviously, needed to do that with just the people they had in the room last year, and just the fact that Amari Cooper, who they traded for, is still a pending free agent. But, looking at Palmer, he's kind of a potentially five-tool wide receiver, in my opinion, can be that big, deep field threat, can play out of the slot. He can make contested catches and create separation. But like I said, potentially five-tool player because he does not consistently do all those things. You look at his most productive season was in 2022, where he had 72 catches, 369 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, definitely not eye-popping numbers for that kind of money, but it's not a crazy amount of money. And again, adding a veteran presence. And then another guy I think is an interesting addition, again, with the focal point on just beefing the defense. They brought back Dane Jackson, again on a 1-year deal. He was a 7th-round pick by Buffalo in 2020, played 1 season down in Carolina and made his way back. So again, just adding some established and almost in-house, well-versed cornerback help for the secondary. So, those are the most notable free agent signings, as well as just contract extensions and some trades or releases that they did. Looking at their draft, or moving on to their draft, I should say. I thought the Buffalo Bills had a pretty good draft, pretty active draft, and answered a lot of their big questions, through the picks that they made across rounds 1 through 7. Obviously, you can see it here. Very strong focus on the defense and just adding guys that can create pressure. You look at their first 5 picks were all defensive players. Overall, I give them a B+ grade in the draft, just because some of the moves are, maybe not as concrete slam dunk picks as they should be for what they gave up or what they did to get that player. But again, adding a lot of potential game-changing type guys to the defensive side of the ball, something Buffalo needed to do. Just kind of glancing over their picks, the first-round pick obviously being cornerback Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, the fastest player at the combine. A speedy and feisty coverage corner that I think would absolutely bolster the Bills' secondary pretty much from day one, and give them that guy of the future to build their defense and their secondary around, which, honestly, Buffalo's been desperately trying to find since they moved on from Tre'Davious White and Gilmore, and, been trying to find that replacement, as evidenced by drafting Kyrie Elam in the first round just, 2-3 years ago. So I think Maxwell Harrison, slam dunk pick. Looking at round 2, they took TJ Sanders, a guy a lot of people were high on, an interior D tackle out of South Carolina. Again, just adding to the potential interior D-line presence. You saw him do it in free agency, see him do it here and again in the draft. They did trade up to get him at pick 41, traded with Chicago. They got 41, 72, and pick 240 in exchange for pick 56, 62, and 109. So, like I said, love them being aggressive to address their needs and get probably, quote, their guy. But again, TJ Sanders is, a dude that I think needs to be a little bit of a more consistent threat from the interior defensive line for that trade up and what they gave up to be worthwhile. And then looking down to the 3rd round, they took Landon Jackson, the kind of electrifying edge rusher out of Arkansas. Overall, good value pick. He was a guy I talked about in our pre-draft coverage. Like I said, he's a freak athlete, lengthy edge rusher, and I think just a great fit for the Buffalo defense, and helps make that Bosa signing probably a little more invaluable, and just what he can do as the established veteran to help bring someone like Landon Jackson on. Looking at round 4, again, address the interior D-line with Deion Walker, just a behemoth of a man. I believe in our pre-draft coverage, I said what we call him in the business as a unit. You can look up his measurables, but he is, borderline with right there with the Mountain in Game of Thrones, and just his sheer presence, just so adds a massive body, just in the middle of the D line. Another trade, actually, that they traded up to get Walker, and ironically traded again with Chicago and gave up pick 132, 169, for pick 109, which is, a pick that they ultimately gave up the first time. So it was a little bit of a draft day, Sonny Weaver vibe with what Bean was doing. But hey, he went and got his guys, and you got to appreciate that. Looking at the rest of their draft, took Jordan Hancock, the safety out of Ohio State. Finally addressed offense in the 5th round, getting Jackson Hawes, the blocking tight end out of Georgia Tech. Well, another pick that I really like is Dorian Strong. I think our boy Coach Defense likes it too, but the corner out of Virginia Tech, he's an excellent scheme fit, a great zone coverage, guru corner, and, posted one of the best 3-cone times at the combine. And, he has kind of experience bringing pressure or adding pressure out of that cornerback spot. Like he did at Virginia Tech. So I like that pick. Then finalizing things out, they took Chase Lunt, the tackle out of UConn, and then added to the receiver room in the 7th round, which they, didn't address anywhere else. So they took Caden Prather out of Maryland. But like I said, overall, I thought Buffalo had a good draft, B+ grade. Looking at kind of the rest of the moves they made, like I said, they did trade Kaiir Elam. Ultimately, what did they give up for Kaiir Elam? Or they traded him to Dallas for a 2025 5th round pick and got a 2026 7th round pick for their former 1st round pick, but got him off of, got rid of the baggage, we should say. And then in terms of coaching, no big changes. Obviously, McDermott, Joe Brady, and Bobic all still there. They did add a new special teams coordinator in Chris Tabor, and had some new defensive assistants and a new head strength and conditioning coach. But overall, that's not it. That's pretty much the moves they made coaching wise. And again, no huge trades, but there have been some rumors kind of swirling at this point with some potential contract disputes. I'm sure everyone can kind of guess what I'm alluding to. It seems every day there's been a new James Cook potential move saga with him being unhappy with his contract. They could potentially look to add Jair Alexander with him getting released by the Green Bay Packers. And of course, there were rumors that Buffalo offered, I think, a 2026 2nd round pick for Trey Hendrickson. So I suppose we'll wait and see if Buffalo does anything else. But if half of those rumors are true, then that tells me they're at least still trying to be somewhat active in building their roster for 2025. Looking at the 2025 schedule as a whole, kind of crazy when you look at it because, they went, like I said, always been good, 13-4 in 2024, first in the AFC West, 5-1 in their division last year. Their sole loss was to New England in Week 18 when they already had their playoff seeding all secured and locked up. So really no reason to play for anything. So kind of gifted the Patriots that one. And of course, like I said, lost to my Chiefs in the AFC title game. Had to say it one more time. But with all that success, somehow the Buffalo Bills have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL when you base it on the win totals from Vegas for the teams that they're facing. I talked about the New York Giants last week having the toughest schedule. They had to play 10 playoff teams from 2024. Buffalo got a little easier. They only have to play 6. They have 9 home games and, 5 primetime games. So, pretty easy schedule. Definitely some circle your calendar type games. Look at week 1 against Baltimore. Going to be a high-flying matchup. Of course, they got the Chiefs in week 9. Always, a popcorn, get your popcorn ready type regular season game. Got Cincinnati in week 14. That could be a big one depending on the health of the Bengals. Got the Eagles in week 17. So, like I said, a lot of big-time, prime-time matchups. But just kind of quickly going through the schedule and my predictions. Looking at week 1, just a quick rundown. If you agree or disagree with me, Buffalo Bills fans, please let me know below. But week 1 against Baltimore, I always think that Baltimore starts hot. I see that as an L for Josh Allen and the Bills in week 1. So 0-1 to start the season. But bear with me. Week 2 against the Jets. Come on, it's the GD Jets, guys. So I see them winning that one. I see them firing off another AFC East victory, taking down Miami in week 3. Obviously, see them beating the Saints in week 4. I got them beating another AFC East opponent in New England in week 5. They're definitely going to beat the Falcons in week 6. Bye week, they're chilling. Josh and his new bride, Steinfield, probably off doing something in week 7. Then we got week 8 against Carolina. Come on, guys. They're winning that one. And then hot take here, as the Chiefs fan, call me biased, call me a homer, whatever. But I got an L in week 9 against Kansas City at home in Buffalo, something that Kansas City doesn't seem to do in the regular season, but I think 2025 is going to be a little different flavor. And maybe that's a good thing for Buffalo, maybe not. But I got KC winning that week 9 matchup. Then coming off of the loss, so, 2 losses at this point, they're going to rattle off a nice run of wins here. I got them beating Miami. I got them beating Tampa Bay. I got them beating Houston in week 12. I got them beating Pittsburgh in week 13. I got them losing. I'm going to say Cincinnati's hot, and they're scoring 85 points a game. They're going to have to, but I think Burrow's healthy and back, fully healthy and going scorched earth mode. So I see that as a loss to the Bengals in week 14. That is 3 losses on the year. And then they finish the season out from weeks 15 through 18, just rattling off dubs, finishing with 1 win better than they did in 2024 overall, 14-3. That's my prediction for the Buffalo Bills. Love it or hate it. I'd hope you love it as a Bills fan. Maybe a little salty about some of those L predictions, but hey, I got you guys beating the Philly Eagles in week 17. Philly fans, you can call me a hater, but whatever. So, like I said, there it is. My offseason grade as a whole, I give them an A minus. Love some of the low risk, high reward signings they did in free agency. I like the draft picks they made and being aggressive to address the big needs they had. Really bolstered their defense, which, like I said, is something they're going to need to have improved if they're going to take that next step in the playoffs. And you see it there just to finalize things out for you, ladies and gentlemen. My 2025 record or schedule prediction is 14-3 with losses to the Ravens, my Chiefs, and the Cincinnati Bengals. But, they are going to continue doing what they've done in this Josh Allen era, be in the thick of the championship run, be in the Super Bowl talks pretty much until the end, or they're, not in the playoffs anymore. And honestly, I think there is a lot riding on this season, especially for Sean McDermott's future, because they've kind of been at the doorstep for so long. You can only take so much of that before you start internally looking at what changes need to be made. So, Buffalo's going to have to take that next step without the tree getting shooken a lot after this season. Let's just put it that way. But that rounds out our Buffalo Bills 2025 preview, ladies and gentlemen. As always, please hit that subscribe and like button down below. Buffalo Bill fans, let me hear from you in the comments, or if you want to get at us on social, there's the Hit Squad as well as my info. Again, Circle Chiefs Insider if you want to start some friendly Buffalo's Kansas City banter as I preview your team and tell me how my team's going to be so bad. I welcome all of it, but please be sure to get at all of us on social media across Twitter and Instagram. As always, the Lockdown Defense is dropping content, hot and spicy content all day, every day. Maybe not spicy, that could go with the wrong site, but you know what I mean. So get at us across all social media platforms. If you're one of our dinosaur followers out there, we do welcome Gmail. So get on it. But like I said, rounds up our kickoff of the AFC East preview. Hope everyone has a great week. Hope you love the content we're dropping for your teams. In the meantime, in between time, I am the real AG. This is the Lockdown Defense Sports Network, and we'll see you when we see you. You better step up and lock it down, baby.